Good evening, everyone. It's Necro Thursday. How's everyone doing? And how are you doing, Mike?
I am well, enjoying this beautiful summer, well, early summer Sunday. Uh, Recording this on June 19th. Um, but then it just really dawned on me that although it feels like a Sunday, we're recording this on Monday, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Do you have the day off or something like that? Like, what?
Yes, I did. That's why I thought for a minute we were recording it on a Sunday. I was off today for the, of course, Juneteenth holiday. And yeah, today just kind of felt like a Sunday. Me and Stella went out for some food and stuff and Park Slope area, and it felt like a double Sunday in a way, I guess.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I didn't have the day off either because, I work for a pretty, even though I work in a very conservative industry,
Hmm.
my company is actually pretty progressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 2 years ago they made Juneteenth like a national holiday. So, I mean, I believe everybody should have the day off,
Yeah.
hopefully. Um, But yeah, it was cool. Yesterday, which was Sunday, listeners, Stella and I went to see Biohazard, Mike, the old Biohazard reunion at Irving Plaza,
Wow,
which was on.
how was that?
It was cool, man. I mean, they did Friday with King Nine and Indecision, and then yesterday, Sunday, was with a bunch of bands: Sheer Terror, Sub Zero, Sworn Enemy. It was cool. Um, it's just I don't know though. So observation, like you hear those songs, and it kind of just brings you back to that kind of time and place. But I think ultimately, like, I was never like a super fan. Like, I liked them when I was very young, like about 15, 16, like
Right.
the demo and like the first album. And then I think I kind of like fell off on them for a bit. But when you see them live, it's like, oh yeah, like this is why this band was huge. Like they have that certain something.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it kind of like
totally.
brought me back to like, 92, 93.
Yeah, they were never like a band I put their records on, but when I would catch them, I've seen them live a handful of times, and it's always been a very intense live show. They're great. They're a live band. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm getting at. They are a live band. Not that the records aren't good or aren't recorded, whatever, well, or anything like that. I just think that you kind of get the whole real picture of it when you see them play live, and it looks like they're sticking around. So yeah, hopefully, listeners, if you get the chance to see them, I would go see them. They're doing I think a European tour this summer, but it seems like they will have more gigs in America this year, which would be nice.
Europe is going to be massive for them because I
Oh,
feel like Europeans really dig Biohazard.
oh yeah. I mean, look for a lot of New York bands or bands out of like the New York hardcore scene. I mean, Europe is like your career. I mean, you sell more records there, you play to more people there, and it's a very important piece of the puzzle.
And there's also the Summerfest festival circuit where you can make a lot of cash too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, play in front of about, I don't know, 400,000 people or whatever, and it's cool. I mean, look, America's great, and America, of course, has a thriving hardcore and metal scene, but America doesn't have a thriving festival scene. Not really. Like,
No,
look, we have DF, and there are festivals, but it's not what it is in Europe. Wouldn't you agree?
absolutely, man. Because like in Europe, they take the entire summer off in most cases, and like that's what people do is they go to festivals, and there's metal fest, but there's also like multi genre like cultural thing.
Mm.
Like for example, Roskilde Fest in
Hmm.
Denmark is like we played that a few years ago, and it was like Paul McCartney was the headliner. you know,
Wow.
and like other like Lamb of God. There's tons of metal bands that played, but Nicki Minaj played, Paul McCartney, and it was like
Yeah,
a
wild shit. I
wild,
mean,
yeah,
it's funny you said they take almost the summer off. They definitely take August off, and like Stella reminded me of that. How in Europe, like, good luck reaching certain people in the month of August because that's like a really big vacation month. And there's definitely festivals in August as well. But in America, it's like we're happy if our company gives us a day off.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's just so absurd. Or you have to like, toil and sweat and kill yourself for 5 work days off. It's just, it
Yeah.
is what it is here. The
No,
culture.
it is, man, and that's what I love about Europe, man. Like going over there in the summer and fucking, it's just fun. It's like we never did like 2 weeks of festival dates, but we've gone over there and done a handful of them, and never
Mm.
Wacken, which is like the dream for everybody. But it's great. The fest scene in Europe is great.
Yeah, yeah. Just wanted to say real quick, thank you for all the good feedback on our body double episode last week, which seems to have gone over pretty well, huh, Mike?
Yeah, that was a fun one, and some of our upcoming voicemails address that, and I'm
Hmm.
interested in that. But before we get into that, let's talk about our brothers in the other shows. Of course.
Yes, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Why don't you kick off Monday, Mike?
Well, Monday coming at you, we have Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666, another horror podcast, but he focuses on interviews, and you can hear him
Hmm.
talk to filmmakers, actors, sometimes one of us,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
But it's
Uh,
quality, definite quality.
Quality show. Cheers to you, Brandon. On Tuesday, we have our very own Jackie Smith hosting one of the greatest metal podcasts in the land with Into the Necrosphere. I always thought that was a cool name.
Yeah,
Into the Necrosphere.
yeah,
No?
no,
Great name.
definitely excellent name, and
Strong name.
my favorite actually. And sometimes I do listen to the Heavy Hole podcast here and there.
Oh, I got to check that one.
That's a good one. Yeah. Especially if you live in the tri-state area. It's very, very New York, New Jersey centric sort of thing.
Heavy Hole. Okay.
Yeah,
They do a lot of like black and death metal and stuff like that, or?
yeah. Mostly death metal because it's Will from Reeking Aura is
Oh, okay.
is the main. Well, he's one of the main guys there, and they talk a lot of death metal. They have had some Long Island black metal, obscure Long Island black metal episodes, like things like that.
Hmm. I will check that out. On Wednesday, what do we got, Michael?
Well, that's Everything Went Black, which is my long running podcast project. That it's pretty much all over the spectrum what you can hear on there. It's
Yeah.
a lot of different things.
Be sure to check out the episode that I was on the other week talking about my Confusion project. And just so you all know, this Friday, June 23rd, our discography, Storm of the Walls, 1990 to 1994, comes out on all digital platforms. So be sure you add it to your Spotify or your Apple or whatnot. And yes, don't forget, Friday the 23rd, Confusion. On Thursday, while you're listening to it right now, the Necromaniacs podcast, the greatest horror podcast in the world, right, Mike?
One of them, definitely. Definitely one of my favorites. So it's not just because I'm one of the hosts.
I just like to say it's the best. I won't even say it's one of. It's just the best. On Friday, my brother from my mother, Mr. John Draper, hosting the excellent Break the Apocalypse podcast. Please make sure you check out that show. Fun show, fun show. Friends of the show. Saturday, you got the day off. Go out. It's summertime, go to the beach, go to the pool, read a book, sit under a tree. But on Sunday, make sure you come right back here to the podcasting universe to check out none other than our friend Carl Hikara's Soul Knocks podcast.
Yeah, Carl's been really stepping it up with his guests lately, and if anyone has any interest in like the occult or like any kind of esoteric ideas, like definitely check that out. It's a great one.
Awesome. Wanted to say on the last episode, the body double episode, I talked about some Blu-rays I got. But there was one I got this week, which Severin released, I believe it was earlier this year, very late last year, to just a very limited release, of course, of Four Flies on Gray Velvet from Dario Argento in like a 4-disc set, basically, with a slipcase and, 4K and a Blu-ray and then an extra Blu-ray and a CD soundtrack. See, I didn't keep my eye on the ball when it came out because I was like, oh well, that'll stay in stock. They'll have that. Well, it did not stay in stock. It completely sold out and it is kind of gone forever. But I did manage to score a copy on eBay, like a sealed copy. I probably paid a little too much for it because it was obviously more money than when Severin was selling it. But I'm very happy to have Four Flies on Blu-ray. Did you also miss that window, Mr. Hill, or did you grab Four Flies?
I missed the window, man.
Yeah.
I've been moving and unpacking and dealing with a lot of stuff right now, so I kind of missed out on
Yes.
that.
Yeah. This was, oh man, I'm trying to remember what month in 2023 it was when they actually put it on sale. But yeah, they stayed true to their word about it being limited, which kind of sucks because I don't think any Argento movie should be this limited. And maybe perhaps it'll come out as like a standalone Blu-ray without the bells and whistles. But I'm very happy to have this. Of like the original trilogy, this is like kind of the least seen movie, and one could argue it's one of his least seen films ever, just due to like the kind of the American rights and like the home video rights. But yeah, I can't wait to dive into this bad boy.
Well, we talked a little bit about the voicemail, so the Necro phone. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
call us and leave a message and make recommendations for movies, basically whatever you want, we'll most likely play you on the show. So of course
Yes, we will.
that number is 908-913-0782. That's 908-913-0782. And I got 3 guys calling this past week.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, we got Stuart.
Hey guys, this is Stuart out in the Bay Area calling in again. I just listened to the Body Double episode. Really liked it. Love that movie. That's one I saw relatively later. I think I watched it during the pandemic. I may have seen it before, but I probably forgot about it. A couple other De Palma movies that I've enjoyed. One is kind of like a musical. It's called Phantom of the Paradise. And it actually has Jessica Harper in it, who was Susie Banyan in Dario Argento's Suspiria. It's also got I forgot his name, but he's in one of my favorite good bad horror movies, Chud 2, Bud the Chud. He plays this guy called Beef, which is kind of like I don't know, maybe like a spoof on Meatloaf or something. But that one's pretty cool. It involves like a Faustian bargain, a deal with the devil. Also, I really like the De Palma movie Sisters. I don't know if you've seen that. That has Margot Kidder in it. That's an older one. Haven't seen that one in a while. But also, the Craig Watson, the actor, he was in a movie called Ghost Story from 1981. I watched that during the pandemic too. I think I bought the Blu-ray from Screen Factory, but that has like Fred Astaire in it, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Melvin Douglas, John Houseman, like all these old guys. It's kind of it's okay. It's kind of it's worth watching. It's kind of a fun ghost story. Well, I wouldn't say fun, but it's a ghost story, which is why it's called Ghost Story, I guess. Anyways, I did want to mention that I forgot to mention this last time. I did I listened to the Found episode. And I did kind of agree with your synopsis about that film. I watched that during the pandemic too, after reading about it, and yeah, that was a grim experience. The ending kind of stuck with me too. I was like walking around the next few days doing whatever, just like, man, that was fucked up, But I'll never watch that one again. That was I agree with your rating on that one. Haven't really been checking much out. Finally watched Bones and All. I really loved that movie. Watched a few older movies with George C. Scott. Not horror related, even though I love him in The Changeling and The Exorcist 3. But I watched The Hospital on Tubi, and The Last Run I rented on Amazon Prime. Both of those are pretty cool. I love that guy. He's a really good actor.
Okay.
And,
All right, so Stuart dug the body double episode. It seems like that's kind of been the general consensus. Were you surprised by that at all, Mike?
You know what? I kind of was a little surprised by it because I feel like the giallo stuff, the thriller stuff, the stuff that's not essentially 100% horror, you kind of never know what you're going to get with the response. But I think I'm happy to share that our listeners like that kind of stuff. So I can maybe make that blanket statement that our listeners maybe want that, and which is a good thing because we definitely want to give you more of what you want. But you know what, though? I mean, honestly, one would be hard pressed to not enjoy that movie. I feel like I don't know. No.
Yeah, and you know, I acknowledge that it is a little bit of a reach to put it on a horror podcast, but you know, philosophically, spiritually, that movie definitely fits in with the Necromaniacs canon. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it seems like a lot of people enjoyed the episode, and we got some good feedback. And yeah, man, De Palma, obviously he's getting up there in age. He has not retired, as far as I know. But if he wants to plunk down another final thriller, I'll be there to see it. No.
Also, I was just messaging with my buddy Scott Hull from Pig Destroyer about Ghost Story. So that's something I've never seen that movie, believe it or not, from 1981, and I am making it my business to watch that movie later this week.
Yeah, we should probably maybe cover it. I actually rewatched it about 2 years ago. It's a great winter horror movie, Mike Hill. But it is a very solid early 80s jam. It's like those early 80s ones that could probably also have been in the late 70s. It's kind of like that vibe, if that helps. But no, really good movie. So listeners, don't be surprised if we pop that out at some point. But yes, Ghost Story.
And of course, Stuart agreed with us on our assessment of Found, which is one of the most vile films I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a shower film. That's what I'll refer to it as. You will need a shower after done. But you know what? Like I said, I admired it for its bravery, perhaps. It's wanting to go there in a time when maybe not every horror movie wants to go there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I give it props, but I don't think I need to watch that again.
No. Somewhat tempted to read that book. Somewhat tempted. I did not buy the book yet. Kind of kicking it around. There's a bunch of other books I'd like to read. But, yeah, Found was an interesting flick.
Next up, we got Cam.
Hey, Necromaniacs, Mike and Mike. Hope you guys are well. This is Cam calling from Washington, D.C. I watched a couple of movies on Shudder this week. I don't know if you guys have seen them. Kids vs. Aliens, Influencer, which I thought was a pretty cool modern take on like a horror thriller. Brooklyn 45, which I thought was pretty cool, had like a strong stage type of feel to it. I could see it being a play. And Slapface, which, was a little goofy at times, but you hang in there. It has a pretty cool twist at the end. Let me know if you guys have
now,
seen
Cam is a personal friend of mine.
Appreciate the show. Keep up the good work. Bye.
Yeah, we've been in touch a lot, and Cam gave me a trim, a haircut, and a little bit of a hairstyling down in Baltimore.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah,
all right.
When we played Hell in the Harbor. He came out, he brought his entire, he's a pro, man. Like, that's what he does for a living. And brought his gear with him. We set up, and, there was no green room in this place we played at. So in some utility closet, he gave me a haircut and styled my hair.
That's nice. I am a baldy, Cam, so my haircut would be very easy. It would involve very little work. However, every time I do go to get like a beard trim or a mustache trim, I refer to it as going to get a haircut, Michael, so you know. Yes.
I used to sport the crew cut, but lately, the last year or so, I've been growing out my hair and, experimenting with different things. So, different looks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you still have hair, by all means, grow your hair. Yes.
Right. One of the things that Cam mentioned was Brooklyn 45, which is another movie that's on my hit list. I hear so much about it. It's got Larry Fessenden in it, and it's kind of more like it has a play vibe, according to Cam, and it's sounds like there's a lot of dialogue, which is the kind of thing that I like.
Now, what year is that from?
Apparently, it's brand new.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was like, Larry Fessenden, Brooklyn 45. I'm like, I mean, I feel like I try to stay up on his shit. So if it's like new, then yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have been talking about it, and you know, and this again, it comes up, and it's on Shudder, so there's no reason not to watch it.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been watching a bunch of older fare as of late, so it would be nice to see something new.
And Mike from Telford is back.
Yes,
I'm glad to hear that. Now, Mike, do me a favor, man. Let us play your message, because it's like I love hearing you, dude. I love hearing from you. I look forward to your voicemails, and I like what you have to say all the time. And I would like to share that with everyone instead of forcing us to summarize like what you.
Yeah, we got to do summarizations. I mean, it can be a very quick one that you want, that we can play, or however long or short you want it. But yeah, it would be nice to play it.
So Mike was also another appreciator of Body Double, even though he does not like Brian De Palma.
Yes, I got a kick out of him. His seemingly distaste of De Palma, because I don't know if I've ever even come across someone say they don't like his movies, and I say that with certainty.
It almost felt like he was a little mad at us for forcing him to watch it.
Maybe him and De Palma had some arguments back in the day. I don't know. It almost seemed that way. Yes.
And Mike also put out a conspiracy theory that De Palma had seen Tenebrae.
You know what? Look, it is possible that he saw it, especially if he was, as another listener, or perhaps it was Mike said on Instagram, if he was on the festival circuit back in the late 70s, early 80s, or did Cannes, all those movies played those festivals. And it wouldn't surprise me if people like De Palma and like that, that early crew of filmmakers that was emerging in America in the 70s, or maybe even Scorsese, like, it wouldn't surprise me if they checked out some Italian films, or Italian thrillers.
That would be cool in a QA with the audience if someone asked him, like, did you see Tenebrae before you made all this?
Because that would have been honestly the only way, because as we stressed in the episode, it was not in America till several years later under a different title, the title being Unsane. But as from what I understand, Tenebrae screened as is in the festival circuits in Europe. So interesting.
And just real quick, so he appreciated the Nightlands episode I did with Rennie, our quality control manager. And yes, Andrew Lehman was there, and he read the Dunwich Horror, the H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah,
very cool.
And also another vote for us to do Alucarda.
Yeah. It's funny. I had the actual DVD of that, like it was like the red case DVD.
Yep.
And then I did this whole thing of movies where I sold a bunch of my DVDs because I knew I was going to get the Blu-rays. And that movie, I did not get the Blu-ray, and I'm not sure what its current Blu-ray status is. It might be out of print, but it might not be. But that is something we should definitely cover.
I also at one time had that. I don't know if I still have it in my collection, though, because I also either lost some stuff or gave away some things or loaned things to people who never returned them, that kind of thing. So I think that one was in that. That's the fate.
That happens.
That one, yeah. Yeah, so thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, I love getting these emails. They're cool. I look forward to hearing from you guys every week, and keep them coming.
Keep them coming. And again, if you don't want it mentioned on the air, obviously say that at the top of the call. But if you make no mention, that means you're going on the air.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. But listeners, tonight, we're going back to the 70s after last week's episode spent in the lovely 80s. And we will be covering the 1976 classic from director Dan Curtis, Burnt Offerings, right, Michael?
Now, coincidentally, this movie was recommended to us by Stuart.
Huh.
Yeah.
See, Stuart, you're getting your way here, man. You are getting your way. But you know what, though? Hey, if you offer up a film, hint, hint, offer up that we enjoy, or that was something that was kind of permeating in our heads, whatever, then hey, man, it could very well be the next movie on the show, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean we have a pretty nice list of stuff that we haven't covered. Like there's a bunch of those Mexican films, and that stuff is definitely we'll most likely get around to most of it because a lot of quality recommendations have been coming from you guys.
Yeah. Now, Burnt Offerings is a movie that I had seen, wow, maybe 20 years ago, maybe even a little longer than that, but had not done any rewatches until this very recent rewatch for the show. What about you, Mike?
I saw this when I was a kid, so yeah, it was quite a while ago. And back in the 80s, I saw this movie. And yeah, but I hadn't seen it since we discussed doing it on the show. So yeah, it's been a while for me.
Well, it clicks a lot of boxes. Number one, it's a Dan Curtis movie. I'll see anything with his name on it. I like Dark Shadows, Kolchak, the Night Stalker film. So that's one box. Number two, it is a summer horror film, Mike Hill. So that is yet another box. You think it's an autumn horror film probably, but no, this is a summer horror movie, which as you watch it, you will obviously grasp that within the first 10 minutes of the movie. It's got one of our favorite guys ever in it, Mr. Oliver Reed, right, Mike Hill?
Incredible. Love it.
And yet a fourth box for me, it's got Karen Black in it. So, I mean, come on. How could you not want to see this movie? When you go a little deeper, why, it has Mickey himself, Burgess Meredith, and dig a little deeper than that, it has the legendary Bette Davis. I mean, amazing cast, no?
Really great cast, and they're all acting their asses off in this too.
Yes, everyone's taking it very seriously. A lot of scenery chewing. Would you agree?
And Burgess Meredith is not in that much, but his presence is felt in this film. Like he really makes an impact on you.
Yeah,
scenes that he's in.
Mm-hmm. He's creepy. You don't really know. Like you're wondering what is up with him and his sister. Like it's Eileen Heckard. It's like it's just I don't know. There's just so much to kind of dig in on this one. Honestly, just kind of wanted to mention like reasons you should check it out at just face value. No.
Yeah, definitely, and it's very, the atmosphere in this is also pretty awesome.
Yeah, and look, I'm a sucker for 70s horror. This is from 1976. I have often referred to the 70s as horror's greatest decade, and I don't know, it's movies like this that kind of reinforce it for me personally. While some may not think this movie is so amazing, I don't know. For me, it's just one of those really kind of like it's got a special place in my heart kind of movies, Mike.
Yeah, no, definitely. This is and this is on Tubi too, so you can watch it for free, basically.
Yeah, you can watch it for free. I'm considering the Kino Lorber Blu-ray, which is available actually, but yeah, currently it is for free for people who have streaming services. A little more about the film, as I said, written by Dan Curtis, directed by Dan Curtis, based on a book, which that I did not know, by Robert Marasco. This movie was filmed in 75, released in 76. The book is from 73.
Wow.
Release date, August 25th, 1976. 116-minute running time. Now, for 76 money, it had a $2 million budget, which is no small chunk of change, honestly, for then. But it did not set the box office on fire. It was only 1.5 million at the box office, and honestly, like a lot of movies that go on to be classics, it was kind of panned quite a bit in its initial run. Um, honestly, again, it's got that kind of American Gothic vibe too, right, Mike?
Those are the words I was just about to say. Absolutely. Yep. American Gothic.
American Gothic, exactly. Um, another thing, listeners, of note is if you're watching this for the first time or if you're reading about it, uh, the parallels to The Shining are quite profound, Michael, in my opinion. Um, and one could argue that Stephen King might have definitely been somewhat inspired by the Robert Marasco book, which came out 2 years before he began writing The Shining. Stephen King began writing The Shining, I believe, in 75. This book was a hit, actually, which is why this movie was made in like 72, 73. So interesting. There are similarities. It is not the same. There's some big differences, but definite Shining vibes for me. What about you, Mike?
I was thinking the same thing. It's not as sprawling as The Shining, and it doesn't have that. It's a different sort of vibe in general because The Shining has like a very cold feel because it's in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
claustrophobic, isolated. There's definitely an isolation vibe going on in this, but it's like you mentioned earlier. It's in the summer. They're like walking around bathing suits and going into the pool
Right.
and things like that.
Exactly. And again, I think this is largely its own thing, but it's the similarities is a family goes to a house. They have one son, just like, Danny is the one son in The Shining. The main character in this, played by Oliver Reed Ben, is a surprise, surprise writer, just like Mr. Torrance is in The Shining. It is there are other similarities. It's a supernatural horror film, supernatural novel, just like the King movie and the Kubrick movie and the King book. Um, but again, it definitely veers off into different places. Burnt Offerings, and Stephen King's book is way more epic and has five other parts too. You know what I'm saying? That there's way more going on in the King book, straight up. No.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Stephen King always writes layers and layers and layers of plot,
Mhm.
and characters, and he gets really deep into it. This is a little bit more streamlined as of a narrative
Yeah,
for sure.
and having seen the movie, of course, and enjoyed the movie, being made aware of the book, I would love to read this book actually, and I think I am going to, because apparently there's a whole host of differences in both the beginning and ending. So yeah, I definitely want to check this book out by Robert Marasco. Um, look, my overall first impressions of this is like it's my thing. It's fucking 70s. It's creepy. It's got a house. It's got fucking a great cast. So the fanboyisms may shine through tonight, Michael.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Want to talk a bit more about the overall plot?
Yeah. So the family of Marion, Ben, and their son,
Davey.
Davey, they arrive at this pretty shabby house, and that also lends to the Gothic vibe of it because it just has that 19th century mansion look to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they even comment about how run down it is. But to rent the mansion for the summer was for the entire summer was only $900.
Yes. When they get to the house, they're greeted by these elderly siblings, Arnold and Rosalind Allardyce. It's referred to as the Allardyce home, and they're like, "Yeah, it can be yours for just $900," which I think at first, what do you call it? Ben thinks means a month, and then they go for the whole summer, right? Because he's like, right away, he's like $900. I can't afford that, and then they go, for the whole summer. It's like, oh shit, who could pass that up?
But there's a by the way, though. There's a by the way.
Oh yeah, there's a by the way. Share the by the way.
So there's an elderly mother. They claim she's 85 but looks 60.
Mm.
And she's going to live there in the upstairs apartment suite for the remainder of the summer. The only thing that she requires is that she gets her meals while they're there. So they have to leave the meals on the outside of the door for her to. That's it.
Right.
That's the only thing.
Mm.
She's obsessed with being a private life. She doesn't want to see anybody.
Yeah, and as what do you call Burgess Meredith and I believe actress Eileen Heckart are relaying all this information. Could they be any more creeper in relaying all this information? I mean, really, like they're just the way their inflections in their voice, the things they're saying, their mannerisms. It's like, you know.
But also, just the fact that, all right, we're going to rent this house and, for cheap, right? Right then and there, it would make me think there's something wrong with it, And, oh, yeah, and then there's this old woman who lives in the attic that we're not going to see her. She keeps her door locked, and you just got to leave her a tray of food out every day.
The thing is, Karen Black's character, Marion Rolfe, Oliver Reed's wife, she's totally fine with all this. Like, she's totally on board. I mean, it's such a good price. It's, a beautiful house, or it's kind of beautiful. And, she's totally down. And Oliver Reed, like, reluctantly is like, okay. There was this one scene where, like, they tell, Burgess Meredith that they have a son, and he's like, "Oh, really?" It's like so creepy. It's
creepy.
like he's like, you just need to see it, listeners. You just need to when you see it, you know exactly what we're kind of getting at. It just screams run to me. I don't know. I would just run the fuck out of there if I'm that family. Honestly,
Davey's actually one of my favorite characters in the movie, to be honest.
yeah, he's one of the only normal people in the film. No, he's actually actor Lee Montgomery, best known for his role in the movie Ben, about the pack of killer rats from 1972. And then later on in life, he's in a movie with Sarah Jessica Parker, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. How about that?
Okay.
As a young man, but yeah, he's quite different from Danny Torrance, right?
Yeah, he's not like this introverted, sort of quiet kid. Davey's more outgoing. He has mechanical inclinations, like he fixes like the pump where they're trying to get the pool sorted out. And he's like swimming. Danny Torrance is like definitely more of like an introvert.
Yeah, Danny Torrance is almost like a bit of a mess from the get-go, probably due to the abuse at the hands of his father. But there's kind of none of that here with the Davey character. He's also a bit older than Danny, which we have to, make note of. He's like an older kid. Preteen, though, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. Probably like 11 or something like that, 12.
Right.
Uh-huh. Oliver Reed, on the other hand, starts off, he looks like the kind of guy that would be abusive. You know what I mean? Like there's something, Oliver Reed looks like an abuser, just his face and his like demeanor and everything, but he's not like Jack Torrance though, at least initially.
Right. Initially is being the key word. But again, a bit of a shining parallel here as the movie kind of plays on. They get, they arrive at the house July 1st. They're moved in, and, things seem fairly normal except for that Karen Black's character is already very enamored with the house and very kind of like cleaning, and like she's all into it, and she's starting to look a little kooky almost from the get. But Davey and his dad are in the pool together, right? And to me, I saw it as once Oliver Reed kind of hit the water, like something kind of came over him, right? Like this kind of like sinister vibe.
Pretty much from the beginning, the enchantment of the house on the parents start. I mean, even I'll even venture to say that Karen Black's character, just her enamorment of this shambling house, this shabby pile, that's the price was definitely the clincher, but I feel like as soon as they walked in to the house, the enchantment started with them.
Yes, and of note, can't forget, in tow with the family is Ben's elderly Aunt Elizabeth, played by the legendary Bette Davis. again, Betty Davis is I don't know, probably well into her 70s around the time of this movie, and I guess this is kind of late in her career, and when she kind of started doing kind of more weird fare, huh, Mike?
Definitely, this is something you would see her in the '70s in films like this, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
almost like it was almost like a thing with actresses who were really big, say in the 40s, 50s, 60s, say, right? By the time we get into the 70s and 80s, a lot of these actors got, actors and actresses would get old, and the marquee roles would dry up because of the culture of Hollywood, and they would take these kind of weird, either exploitative, sometimes movies, or movies that were just very off the beaten path for their trajectory, like a horror film, right?
Yeah, and there's actually a whole thing about that. Like I remember listening to, I forgot what podcast I was listening to, but there was like they almost consider it a genre of films, like horror films with these like elder actresses, you know.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, Betty Davis does stuff like, Whatever Happened, Baby Jane, Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte, Burnt Offerings, Return to Witch Mountain. She gets, her dark period, Mike Hill, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. But she's actually really great in this. It's almost like comedic, right? Like some of her lines, she kind of offers some lightness in the film at times.
Yeah, she plays it loose, and in contrast to Oliver Reed and Karen Black, who play it very, very heavy, you know.
Yeah, I guess we could get to this at the end, but I almost feel like are Karen Black and Oliver Reed playing this movie too heavy at times?
You know, they've been accused of heavy handedness before. I feel like in their
Right.
work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of
And I
expect
think that's
that,
their
though.
calling card.
Yeah,
It's their calling card.
Yeah.
It's neither bad nor good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's simply what you kind of want from them, you know. Um, Oliver Reed was like a notorious actor, hellraiser. I mean, if you're a younger listener, do a little Oliver Reed Google. He was quite the character. Some listeners may know him from Gladiator, right? It was his last role.
Yeah. I mean, I know him from Curse of the Werewolf. That's like the first time I've seen
That's
him.
right, Curse of the Web, which we covered many moons ago, right here on the podcast.
We did.
An excellent film, but of course, as I'm watching this, Mike, I'm wondering, like, I wonder what Oliver was doing in between takes, and
Oh yeah.
on the nights off or whatever, and when the shooting day was over, like, I wonder what he was up to.
He's a notorious wild man, definitely.
Oh yeah. But it's interesting. I like him and Karen Black as a couple. I think Karen Black looks really cute in this movie to me.
I've always loved Karen Black. She's always been one of my favorites.
She has this beautiful, her face, right? This like beautiful face and like eyes, and even when she like gets all kind of like sloppy and weird and crazy and like some of these other roles, it's like, to me, I always felt like her beauty always just kind of shone through,
Yeah, and she has like a very unique look too, and that's what I like.
Yeah. Like, look, I honestly would say she's probably a more conventionally attractive than Beatrice Dahl, but what they have in common is that no one looks like them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have this singular look to them that's like their own shit, and it kind of makes them more attractive in a way.
I agree with that completely.
Right?
Yeah.
But I also think she's a good actress and made cool movies. And she's just, like, to me, like a 70s horror, like female 70s horror icon in a way, But yeah, things start to go awry in the pool because, again, I got those Shining vibes. This takes place before The Shining. Mr. Dad, Ben, is thrashing his young son about in the pool and trying to drown him. It is a very uncomfortable scene. No?
It seemed very real too, and it's like effective. And
Oh
because,
yeah.
yeah, because I like Davey so much, I didn't like that he was getting roughed up by his dad.
See, that's the thing. The other thing is this. I almost feel like since this was the mid-70s and movies were a bit Wild Westy, I almost feel like was he really dunking him like that at times? Like it sure looks like it's happening. Is no? Like that shit looked like it was happening, right?
Very well could be. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, for fuck's sake, I hope they had some kind of double for Davey, which look, they probably did, but it looks super legit, like, right?
Yeah.
So, and Betty Davis is yelling at him to leave the kid alone, and this and that, and the mother is, she's where she kind of catatonic in the house at this point again, right?
Yeah, the mother is. Yeah.
And it's just a real uncomfortable scene. And then the son, Davy, just grabs like a snorkel mask that's in the pool and bashes his dad right in the face again, which also looks very real. No,
they were wild times, man. The 70s.
They did things for real in the 70s in movies. Nothing was fake, unfortunately. But yeah, great scene. And honestly, it's the decay of the family, Mike Hill. That's kind of really what this movie is about, similar to The Shining in a way. It's a kind of about the decay of the nuclear family. And I was also reading somewhere that it's about the negative effects of consumerism, because the family is kind of so harping on this house and how great it is, and it's like a status thing. But there's a dark side to consumerism. Do you feel that in this movie?
I got to be honest with you, man. I didn't get into that. Like, I read that's kind of like what people were, but to me it was just like a ghost story, possession story,
Right.
And I didn't the political aspects of it. I didn't really, that didn't hit me so much in my viewings of it. But I know that people often go to that, and that it seems legit to me. But I didn't really feel that.
Yeah, like apparently it was like about the negative effects of the middle class life and consumerism, and I don't know. Some of that I get. Some of that. Some of it's maybe a little stretchy. Like you said, it could just be a ghost story. You know what I'm saying? A possession story that doesn't have some of these kind of socio-political undercurrents to it. But I do like the whole decay of the nuclear family thing, though. I do like that, which kind of lines up with kind of late 70s morose darkness that was permeating in a lot of horror films, Mike. No?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I picked up on, is how just, the family itself, if you think about back to the 50s, the family, the nuclear family was like a solid American, kind of institution.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then after the 60s, things really started changing. In the 70s and the 80s, things started changing even more. And I think this is kind of a, maybe like a viewport into like just the madness of that too.
Yeah, like it's a reflection of that. I mean, look, in the 70s, divorce explodes in America.
Right.
And families, well, I would gather quite a few families were, for lack of a better word, decimated to a degree. So, yeah, that definitely hits the film world, and not even just horror, in drama. You know what I'm saying? So, it's funny that I bet back then no one was really thinking of it, but years later when people write books about movies and genres and time capsules, it's always interesting to see what people come up with. So yeah, it's to me it just makes the movie have a little more meat to it if you think of it in those terms, other than it's just a cheesy 70s horror movie.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing cheesy about this movie though, man. It's very atmospheric,
Yeah, no, like, look, some may think it is. I don't. You and I don't. But not everyone could kind of wrap their head around these things, which is fine. Before we started taping, I actually said to Mike, I said, as I was watching it yesterday, I watched it very fresh for the show again, I said, I was getting Phantasm vibes from this movie. And there was a reason for that. It's because the grounds where this is filmed and the house is the house in Phantasm that, like the funeral home house, like the exterior. That's what this is. It's called the Dunsmuir House in Oakland, California, which is where both films were shot. So my instincts were right on the money, Mike.
Yeah, Phantasm's one of my favorites, man. And that the first one, I mean, some of the sequels start getting crazy, but the first one I think is a classic.
And again, going back to some more subtext, Phantasm also, like I said in our review of that, has a lot to do with kind of the breakdown of the family. There are no adults, and it's just, a lot of this kind of 70s darkness that kind of strings some of these films together,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as the movie rolls on, the house's kind of sinister vibe is really palatable, and more fucked up shit starts happening, right?
And there's a mystery as to the elderly mother and why no one's seen her. And the mystery starts to unfold as the movie goes along, too.
Yeah, exactly. Karen Black's character, the mother, refuses to let anybody else, her husband, her son, the aunt played by Bette Davis, go anywhere near the room where Miss Allardyce is staying. And you can't go up there. Only she can. And she's always sleeping, Mrs. Allardyce, right? Allardyce. She's always asleep. You can't disturb her. She's sleeping. She's sleeping. Nobody sleeps more than this woman, Mike. I mean, But if you're really paying attention, you could see like Karen Black is kind of full of shit. Like she's like, you could tell she's kind of not being truthful at all with anyone who asked her about seeing Mrs. Allardyce. And it's, she has a bit of the crazy eyes, and she's slowly becoming possessed, by the house. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And there's another image in here that is the one image that when I think of this movie, because I saw it when I was a kid, I remember it really terrified me, and it stayed with me. When I think of Burnt Offerings, I always think of the one image of the ghostly chauffeur.
Oh my God. Yes. Again, reminds me a bit of The Tall Man, straight up. No?
Definitely the Tall Man vibes.
He is this extremely tall actor. I got to see if we can get his name. Anthony James is his name, known as the hearse driver, American character actor who actually passed in May 26, 2020. He has this creepy face and an extremely creepy smile, right?
Yeah, it terrified me when I was a kid. And, I couldn't sleep, I think, after watching this movie because of that face, man.
Of note, Anthony James, also known as James Anthony, appeared in Poison's 1988 music video for the song Fallen Angel, retired from acting in the early 90s with his final role in Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven in 1992. He had a role in that film. How about that?
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, I want to rewatch that movie. I actually really like that movie. He plays Skinny Dubois in Unforgiven from 1992. Excellent Clint Eastwood Western. But yeah, he'll scare the pants off you listeners, the hearse driver. I think he will. No?
He scared me, and he still made me uncomfortable even watching him as an adult man, too.
Yeah, because there's close-ups of that smile that are like, okay, you could go to another scene now, It lingers on him, right? It's like, I'm uncomfortable. Thank you so much, Dan Curtis. But those are flashbacks that Oliver Reed has, right? Yes. As a young man.
So what we have here is this new family taking on like the mantle of like the former inhabitants of the mansion, and once again, very much Shining,
Yeah. And also of note, Burgess, Meredith, and Eileen Heckard, the brother and sister, they're gone. They're not in the rest of the movie. When they arrive at the house on July 1st to officially move in for the summer or whatever, they're left a note by them, and we never see them again, which is kind of cool, actually, right?
Yeah, it is definitely. Though I did want to see Burgess Meredith again, but
I did. He's so creepy in this movie. Like Burgess Meredith, when he does this kind of, dark horror, weird 70s stuff, he's fucking awesome. I wish there was like a lot more of that out there. Ever look at his IMDb? He's in like a billion things throughout his life, like an astounding number of films he did. Lived a really long, full life in acting. But everyone knows him for Rocky, Mickey, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive film,
Oh yeah. But yeah, I mean, sadly, Bette Davis's aunt character passes. She's stricken by what? With first like a heart attack or something?
Just bad health.
Well, no. I mean, in the movie, like something happens to her.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that.
She's bedridden. No, she's like bedridden, and then she kind of stays, in the bed, and then she falls ill, and then dies, and they have a funeral for her or whatever. But honestly, all throughout all of this, like while Oliver Reed has unraveled several times, the real unraveling, if you're paying attention, is Marianne, played by Karen Black. And I don't know, I saw it many years ago, but I kind of forgot it. But I kind of was adding it all up as to what the kind of outcome would be regarding the old Miss Allardyce and her. Did you kind of figure that out as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, because like I said, I'd seen this film when I was a kid, and I kind of forgot some of the plot points. But I was like, somewhere along the line, I was like, yeah, this is possession, and we're gonna get a scene with her at the end, where she's full on Mrs. Allardyce.
Yeah, and by the way, that scene, holy shit, another fucked up facial close up that fucked me up at 49 years old, Michael.
She's good like that, man. Remember Trilogy of Terror?
Yes. I mean, for a beautiful woman, when she wants to scare you, she can really scare you, Karen Black. The crazy face, crazy eyes goes very far with her. Yeah, and there's like some weird kind of thing they do with her eyes and then like makeup, but it's just like so much is done with so little, no?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just her expressive face that she has, just that you can't, that's just really, she has an intense face, similar to Beatrice Dahl. Beatrice Dahl is the same kind of
exactly, yeah. Beatrice Dahl, she's kind of the modern Karen Black in a way, or I bet you she would take that as a compliment, honestly. The thing is this, the one thing that was a bit of a letdown was not a lot is really explained per se in this movie. And it's interesting how the title Burnt Offerings, right? Well, there actually are no actual burnt offerings in this movie, but at its conclusion, you kind of realize that there are what the burnt offerings actually really are. And it is, well, sadly, the sacrifice of her family, of Oliver Reed and her young son, in the name of the house and in the name of Mrs. Allardyce, huh?
Yeah. That you could look at it that way. You know what I mean? That's like a sacrifice. Yeah, for sure.
It's, again, I'm wondering if I don't know. I feel like this movie and its kind of like backstory, it has reach. I feel like in certain indie, like modern indie horror, you know what I mean? As far as that aspect of it goes, about how the whole having to sacrifice or kill your family in order to, you know what I'm saying, to live and survive and be reborn,
Yeah, I could see that. This definitely, I could see this reaching into the current crop of films that are being made.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of that. Like you could say the Ari Aster, all of Ari Aster's movies. No, like there's some of that there, or am
Oh,
I reaching?
well, I'm glad you said that because I couldn't think of his name when that
Oh, okay,
I
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
struggling to think of Ari Aster, but yeah, that exactly what his whole trip is, if you ask me.
I would not be surprised if he digs Burnt Offerings, right? I mean, I hope this movie is influential uh, in the modern day because I think it definitely deserves to be seen. Um, I know this movie is quite old, and we've given away quite a bit, but I guess we're okay with kind of giving away the very end, huh?
Yeah, because there's another thing that sort of ties it back into The Shining, like another very Shining-esque final moments in this film.
Hmm.
Where it's revealed that Karen Black's character, Marianne, is in fact Mrs. Allardyce, and she creepily says, "I've been waiting for you, Ben," when Ben walks in on her.
Yeah.
Now they're all getting ready to make their escape though from the place. They're like, "We had enough of this place. We're all getting out of here. Let's go get your mother."
Hmm.
Davy's out in the car, and Davy looks up and he sees what the fuck's his name? Ben.
Yeah.
Careering out of the window, and then Davy is killed by the collapsing chimney of the building.
Yes, yes. The interesting thing, again, parallel to The Shining, is that our writer character, uh, Oliver Reed, does not make it out alive. He actually commits suicide once it is revealed uh, that his wife has basically become this, ghost demonic entity, so to speak, Mrs. Allardyce. Uh, and that the second sacrifice is the young son where piece of the building like the chimney crushes him to death. Super 70s ending, bummer city. And then we hear the voices of the brother and sister, Burgess, Meredith, and Eileen Heckart. We hear their voices for a final time, right?
Yes, they're celebrating the return of their mother, and then they pan over a photo collection.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the portraits, we see Ben, Davy, and Aunt Elizabeth.
Yes, as the offerings, so to speak. And then you put two and two together, and you realize that all those shit tons of photos that were sitting in the house are probably all the dead people who've tried to come to the house throughout all the people they've kind of killed, obviously, right,
Yeah,
Mike?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, just it's so much with so little, I feel like. Even though, look, it was a $2 million budget, like the special effects are minimal, it's not like Star Wars 70s. It's not like some alien sprawling, effects thing. But I think the scares here are legit, and I think it's a good story. And yeah, I'm very compelled to read this book. Apparently, there's a whole beginning scene that's omitted from the film. The beginning of the film, like a bit more of a backstory on the family. And apparently, at the end of the book, Ben and Davy do not die. So yeah, I'd like to see where the book goes. I believe it is in print. So
That sounds interesting, man. I think I'll probably check that out eventually too.
yeah, definitely. But like I said earlier in the podcast, the movie actually didn't do that well. Um, and it kind of it was panned, and Roger Ebert wasn't really too into it, and a lot of reviews of the day were kind of lackluster, and they would compare it to like it's not as good as The Omen or Rosemary's Baby. Like they would kind of point out the more superior films, you know what I'm saying, of the supernatural canon of its time, and be like, this kind of falls flat. But much like most things in life, it became looked upon way more fondly as time passed. Like it got Rosemary's Baby and Exorcist comparisons, and Roger Ebert was like that. It's not as good as those films, and it's not even as good as The Legend of Hell House, which is another great 70s film, which we have covered on the show, right, Mike?
That's right. Back in the day.
Yes, back in the day. But again, I don't know. I completely disagree. I actually think this is an excellent 70s horror film. No?
It's definitely one of my top out of that era. I mean, a lot of great movies came out, but I would put them up in that, maybe a top 20.
Yeah. And look, Dan Curtis actually didn't direct a lot of movies. He did the House of Dark Shadows movie and the Night of Dark Shadows movie, which were theatrical films from 1970 and 71. And then he did the TV movie, The Night Stalker. And then there's this movie. As far as his theatrical goes, of course, he created Dark Shadows, the TV show, and directed a chunk of the early episodes of those. I don't know. I kind of like everything that he's kind of put his hand on over the years, throughout his career.
Yeah, Dark Shadows is definitely a classic in television,
Oh, yeah. It's like a game changer. What would you give Burnt Offerings on our scale of 1 to 5?
I give it a solid 4 out of 5, man, for sure.
Okay. I would go a little higher. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Oh, okay.
Really dug this one. Clicked a lot of the boxes for me. 70s horror is kind of my thing, as it should be all of your thing, listeners. But I know it isn't for everybody. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that a lot of these movies are aging very well for me. So yeah, I'm a bit of a mark for this stuff. As I said, as I've gotten older, I've gotten very into the horror of the 70s. Some of it is for nostalgic reasons, but quite honestly, I almost feel like a lot of these are first viewings because I don't remember a lot of the movies I saw as a kid. Unless, from a certain age onward, like I almost feel like some of these, like I said, are first time viewings.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, for some people, definitely.
Totally. Yeah, want to check out the book. I don't know. I always get it in my head that I want to do like these huge, Dark Shadows TV episode deep dives, but shit always happens because there's always so much shit to watch. I do own the 2 films, House of Dark Shadows and Night of Dark Shadows on Blu-ray. Those would be interesting to cover at some point. The standalone movies.
Yeah, no, I'm down with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great. Or, the Kolchak movie, The Night Strangler, which kind of begat the series, which was the TV movie from 73. It begats the Night Stalker series. So, yeah. Great shit.
So that's it, man. That was a good episode, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. So we're in June, and my socks have not been knocked off with 2023 horror, Michael. They have not been knocked off.
I agree. I'm struggling. A lot of movies have come out, but nothing's really grabbed me so far.
I mean, look, got a whole half a year left, right? A lot could happen. And maybe the horror gods are saving stuff for later in the summer and the fall. I don't know. But again, listeners, if there's a brand new flick that you're surprised we haven't covered or that you think we should cover, please let us know on Instagram or Facebook or through the hotline, because I feel like 2023 is not 2022.
I agree.
Could be wrong though. Whole half a year left.
Well, we'll talk to you guys next week. Take care now.
Take care, everybody. Cheers.
What you don't understand is where everything's leading. When all of the signs you see still point to overload. As you reach out your hand, a shattered picture is